Professor William Liebenberg reports that something profound happened right on schedule, but it was not an explosion, a war, or a dramatic announcement. It unfolded quietly through documents and policy language rather than headlines or speeches. What makes this moment significant is not how loud it was, but how deliberate and precisely timed it appears to be. According to analyst Susan Kokinda, the real threat to the British establishment is not a missile, but a document. She is pointing to a silent reversal of financial power, one that moves through mandates, regulatory frameworks, and bureaucratic restructuring. If you care about your money, your banking freedom, or where financial power is moving in 2026, this shift affects you directly. To understand why this matters, we must first understand what the City of London actually is. It is not simply a financial district or a historic city centre. It is a unique legal and financial jurisdiction with its own autonomy, its own rules, and deep connections to offshore banking networks around the world. For decades, this system exerted enormous influence over U.S. capital flows. Offshore dollar recycling, derivatives markets, shadow banking, and regulatory loopholes allowed risk to be shifted onto American consumers while profits flowed outward. The model extracted value quietly while presenting itself as essential to global stability. What changed in late 2025 was not a single law or executive order. It was a coordinated policy reset. Two major documents released within days of each other signaled that the United States is reasserting sovereign control over its economy and security architecture. These documents did not attack any country or institution directly. Instead, they quietly rewrote priorities. When read together, they undermined the foundations that allowed transnational finance, particularly London-centered networks, to dominate global capital for decades. The first document is the Financial Stability Oversight Council's 2025 annual report. FSOC was created after the 2008 financial crisis, but this report marks a clear shift in tone and intent. Instead of protecting complexity for its own sake, it prioritizes economic growth, productive investment, and systemic risk awareness. Most importantly, it identifies risks that originate outside traditional banks. It openly calls out financial structures that extract value without contributing to real economic output. In plain terms, finance is no longer automatically treated as a creator of growth. It is now recognized as a potential threat to national stability. This is where most people stop paying attention, and where the real implications begin. This shift directly challenges the offshore, derivative-heavy model historically dominated by the City of London. When speculative leverage and regulatory arbitrage are reframed as dangers instead of innovations, the protective shield around global finance weakens. Financial actors are no longer positioned as untouchable architects of prosperity. They are reframed as accountable participants whose value must be demonstrated, not assumed. That distinction changes everything. The second document is the 2025 National Security Strategy. Released just days earlier, it reframes economic policy as a core national security issue. Its message is simple but far-reaching. Sovereign nations, not global institutions, define security and prosperity. The strategy emphasizes domestic industrial capacity, supply chain independence, economic resilience, and strategic control over money and capital systems. Once finance is treated as a security domain, transnational banking empires lose their historical immunity. Individually, these documents might appear routine. Together, they form a coordinated doctrine. FSOC identifies which financial structures destabilize or extract without producing. The National Security Strategy establishes sovereignty as the governing principle. Combined, they declare that national interest now overrides imperial financial norms. This is what Susan Kokinda is highlighting. It is not a dramatic announcement. It is bureaucratic warfare, quiet, procedural, and extremely effective. Kokinda also argues that escalating rhetoric toward Russia serves a narrative purpose. Regardless of personal views, the structural reality is clear. Russia is framed as a geopolitical competitor, but it is not the core economic issue driving these reforms. Financial restructuring is happening independently of military theaters. Economic sovereignty reforms are domestic policy decisions, not reactions to Moscow. In this framework, Russia is the visible threat, while the real battlefield is the architecture of money itself. Nasera and Gesera are not enacted laws and do not appear in official government documents. That is a factual statement. However, many principles associated with them, debt reform, productive economics, and national sovereignty, align closely with the direction now being signaled. The U.S. government is prioritizing sovereign economic control. Financial systems are increasingly judged by their contribution to the real economy. National interest is elevated above global financial consensus. This does not implement Gesera directly, but it makes structural reform possible rather than unthinkable. According to Kokinda, the threat to the old system is existential. Offshore leverage loses protection, regulatory arbitrage collapses, financial extraction faces political resistance, national governments reclaim economic authority. This is not about punishment. It is about irrelevance. A system designed to siphon value cannot survive in a world that prioritizes production, sovereignty, and domestic growth. Transparent and decentralized systems become the only credible long-term alternatives. The panic, therefore, is not about missiles or military conflict. It is about mandates. The FSOC report and the national security strategy do not shout or threaten. They quietly declare that the era of imperial finance is ending. Susan Kokinda's warning is not sensationalism. It is an interpretation of policy direction written in plain bureaucratic language. If economic growth, sovereignty, and national interest now come first, then the City of London's historic privilege over the American economy does not survive this shift. The war is not kinetic. It is structural, and it has already begun.
The British Empire is panicked. NATO chiefs, British generals, even the head of MI6 coming out of the shadows, all screaming for escalation with Russia. They want you to look at the missiles. They want you to think that this is about territory or democracy. Well, it's not. They're not afraid of Russia. They're afraid of a PDF file released quietly in Washington last week, which signals the silent assassination of their entire financial model. The weapon that is terrifying London isn't a hypersonic missile. It's this. Now, it sounds boring, it looks bureaucratic, but inside these pages is the end of the City of London's mandate to loot the American economy. Don't let the name fool you. This is the economic equivalent of a declaration of war on the financier elite. It declares that from now on, people and economic growth come first, not financial parasites. And it comes right on the heels of the administration's national security strategy, which declares that sovereign nations come first, not globalist institutions. These were released within a week of each other, and these two documents reassert that American principles will now govern us, not imperial principles. I'm Susan Kokinda. This has been a battle that I've been part of since the 1970s. But I've seen how the British start wars and create narratives to keep you in the dark.